Hello, my name is Isabella, and I am a student of English literature. Today, I want to take you on a journey with me, a journey of learning, growth, and discovery. This is my personal story of how I moved to London, met an incredible teacher, and found a completely new way to learn English. As you listen, I hope you will feel inspired and motivated to never give up on your own dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem. It all began on a warm and beautiful summer day. The sun was shining brightly in the sky, and the gentle breeze that came through the open window of the train carried the sweet scent of flowers and freshly cut grass. I was sitting alone in my seat, looking out at the rolling countryside passing by. I felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Excitement because I was heading somewhere new, and nervousness because I wasn't very confident in my English yet. There were two women sitting across from me, and they were speaking in English. Their voices were soft and friendly, and I tried my best to follow their conversation. But the truth was, I couldn't understand much. My English at that time was very basic. I knew only a small number of words, and when I heard native speakers talk quickly, everything seemed like a blur. For a moment, I hesitated. Should I just stay quiet? But then, something inside me pushed me forward. I wanted to be brave. I wanted to practice, even if I made mistakes. So I took a deep breath, smiled, and said a few simple words in English. To my surprise, the women understood me. They smiled back, and we started a small conversation. I told them, as best as I could, that I wanted to learn English. They listened patiently and kindly, and they told me that they were from England and had just come back from a conference. Our conversation lasted about 10 minutes, and although my English was far from perfect, that moment filled me with joy. I was proud of myself for trying. When the train reached my station, I said goodbye. Before I left, the women handed me a small piece of paper with their address and phone number. They said, "You can visit us in England one day." Their kindness touched me deeply, and I waved goodbye as the train doors closed. That meeting gave me hope. It was a turning point for me. I promised myself that I would work on my English every single day from that moment forward. And I did. I started translating short texts. I watched English films, I listened to English songs, and I practiced as much as possible. 6 months later, I could see how much I had improved. My vocabulary was bigger, my sentences were clearer, and I felt more confident when I spoke. But I knew I could go further. I decided that if I wanted to reach the next level, I needed to fully immerse myself in the language. So I made a big decision. I would go to London and study English there. When I first arrived in London, the city felt huge and alive. There were people everywhere, tall buildings, bright lights, and the sound of different languages all around me. On my first Monday, I joined a language school. As I walked into the classroom, I felt a little nervous. But the moment I saw my teacher, I knew I was in the right place. She was young, full of energy, and had a warm smile that made everyone feel welcome. We introduced ourselves to each other, and soon the lesson began. One of the first things she said completely changed the way I thought about learning English. She told us, "You don't have to learn the old way. You don't need to memorize endless vocabulary lists or study grammar rules from textbooks all day. Instead, you will learn English by using it, by speaking it, listening to it, and making it a part of your everyday life." I remember thinking, this is exactly what I need. I had never liked studying from textbooks. They always confused me, and I often forgot the words I memorized. My teacher explained that language isn't just a subject we study. It's a tool for communication. When you learn a new language, she said, you need to use it as much as possible. You need to talk to people, express your feelings, share your ideas. That's how you truly learn. I loved this method. It felt natural and exciting. During that first lesson, we didn't just sit and listen. We talked about our hobbies, what we like to do in our free time, and we practiced speaking in pairs and small groups. The more I spoke, the more confident I felt. The next day, Tuesday, one of the students in class asked the teacher a question that I was also curious about. What's the best way to learn new words? The teacher smiled and said, reading. Reading is the most effective way to learn vocabulary. When you read, you see words in context, and you learn how they're used in real sentences. People who read regularly learn new words twice as fast as those who don't. If you want to build your vocabulary quickly, read for at least 30 minutes every day. She explained that it's important to choose books or texts you actually enjoy. If the text is boring or too difficult, you'll give up. Find a story that makes you excited to read, she said. It can be fiction, nonfiction, articles, whatever you like. When you come across a new word, check its meaning in a dictionary. You don't even have to write it down. Because you learned it in context, you'll remember it naturally. I loved this advice. That afternoon, after class, I decided I wanted to find a job where I could practice English even more. I asked some classmates if they knew where students could work, and they told me about a job center. I went there and spoke to a friendly woman who told me they had jobs for students. She suggested 2 options, working as a cleaner or as a waitress in a cafe. I told her I had no experience, but she said my English was good enough to work at the cafe, and it would give me many opportunities to talk to customers. She was right, and I felt excited. She told me I could start training on Thursday. On Wednesday, I returned to school. That day, a quiet student from South Korea raised his hand and asked a question. I read a lot and watch English films, but my pronunciation is still not good. I'm shy to speak because I don't like how I sound. What can I do to improve? Our teacher nodded and said, there's a very powerful technique called shadowing. It's simple but effective. All you have to do is copy what you hear. Find an audio or video you can understand, and as you listen, repeat every word at the same time as the speaker. You're not just reading after them, you're speaking with them, like a shadow. She explained that when we speak English, we often use the muscles in our mouth the same way we use them in our native language, and that can make our pronunciation different from native speakers. Shadowing helps us train those muscles to move correctly. She showed us some videos demonstrating the shadowing technique, and we all practiced together for 3 minutes. It felt a bit strange at first, but I could already see how useful it was. The teacher said, shadowing is also great if you have to give a presentation in English. If you practice shadowing for 10 minutes before your presentation, your pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation will all be much better. After class, I went to the school reception and asked if there were any sports activities. The receptionist told me there was a football team that trained every Wednesday at 5 p.m. I was so happy to hear that because sports had always been an important part of my life. That evening, I joined the football training and met players from all over the world. Brazil, Japan, Spain, Russia, Argentina, and Italy. We laughed, trained hard, and became friends. My life in England was just beginning, but I could already feel how much it was changing me. I had a wonderful teacher who believed in me, new friends from school and football, and soon I would start a job where I could practice English every day. For the first time in my life, I truly believed that I could become fluent in English. When Thursday morning arrived, I felt both nervous and excited. That afternoon, I would begin training for my very first job in London, and I didn't know what to expect. I had never worked in a cafe before, and I wasn't sure if I could do the job well. But I reminded myself of why I was here. I wanted to practice English every single day, and this job would help me do that. When I walked into the cafe, I was pleasantly surprised. It was bright, modern, and welcoming, with the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Behind the counter stood my new boss. She was young, only 25, but she carried herself with confidence. She greeted me warmly and began showing me everything I needed to know: how to prepare coffee and tea, how to serve chocolate cakes and sandwiches, and how to greet customers with a friendly smile. It was a lot to take in. I probably remembered only 20% of what she explained, but she didn't mind. She believed in learning by doing. So she let me try everything myself and corrected me gently when I made mistakes. By the end of the day, I was exhausted, but I felt proud. I had done it. I had survived my first day at work, and I had already learned so much. The next morning was Friday, and I was back at school. During the lesson, one of the students raised an important question. Sometimes when I speak, I'm not sure if I'm using the correct grammar. What should I do if I want to improve? Our teacher smiled and explained something that changed the way I thought about grammar. She said there are usually two types of students: those who learn English because they want to speak, and those who need to pass exams. If your goal is to speak fluently, she said, you don't have to study grammar rules all day. Think about how you learned your native language. You didn't start with grammar. You learned by listening and speaking. You can do the same with English. She explained that the best way to learn grammar naturally is by reading. Books and articles are written in correct grammar, so when you read, you see how sentences are formed. And don't forget shadowing, she added. When you practice shadowing, you are repeating correct sentences with correct grammar. You don't even have to think about the rules. You just copy, and over time, your grammar becomes more natural. I was relieved. I didn't enjoy memorizing grammar rules, and now I knew I could improve by reading and practicing instead. Our teacher also gave advice for students preparing for exams. She suggested using past exam papers as practice because the structure of the tests is usually the same. But I was not studying for an exam. I was studying to communicate. I smiled as I realized how much simpler my path had just become. After class, I visited a website the teacher recommended, grammarinlevels.com. It had clear examples of grammar for each level, and I discovered there were 3 levels. Level 1 for beginners with about 1,000 words, Level 2 for students with around 2,000 words, and Level 3 for those who knew 3,000 words or more. I wasn't sure how many words I knew, but I decided to check later. That afternoon, I went back to the cafe for my second day of training. Things felt much easier. I could already make drinks on my own, and I was starting to enjoy the rhythm of the work. My boss was kind and patient, and she encouraged me whenever I did something well. Most importantly, I could speak to customers. Each time I greeted someone or took an order, I felt my confidence growing. Monday came quickly, and I was back in school. Our teacher asked us what we had done over the weekend, and I shared proudly that I had worked at the cafe and that I was already feeling more comfortable speaking with customers. One of my classmates smiled and said, "Isabella, your pronunciation sounds different this week. It's much better." I couldn't help but laugh. "Thank you," I said. I practiced shadowing on Saturday evening and all day Sunday. I tried to copy the way native speakers talk, and it really helped. Our teacher nodded. "Shadowing is powerful," she said. "Has anyone else tried it?" 3 students raised their hands, including the quiet student from South Korea. Another student admitted she tried, but her mouth hurt after only 5 minutes. We all laughed, but our teacher explained, "That's a good sign. When your mouth muscles hurt, it means you're training them in a new way. It's like going to the gym. Your muscles need time to adapt. Start with 5 minutes, take a break, and then do 5 more minutes. With practice, you'll be able to do more." She went on to explain that shadowing not only improves pronunciation, but also rhythm, intonation, and the way we connect words and sentences. At first, the recordings might feel too fast, but she told us we could focus on just the first or last word in the sentence until we got better. I raised my hand and asked another question. "I visited grammarinlevels.com," I said, "but I don't know which level is right for me because I don't know how many words I know." Our teacher smiled. "That's a great question, Isabella. None of us really know how many words we know, right?" We all nodded. She then introduced us to another website, testlanguages.com. You can take a simple vocabulary test there to see how many words you know. It's only 2 steps, and you can repeat it every month to see your progress. I was curious, so I pulled out my phone and took the test right away. My result was 20,100 words. Most students in the class scored between 2,000 and 2,200 words, except Monica and the boy from South Korea, who both knew 2,500 words. Our teacher said, if you're around 2,000 words, you should use grammar from level 2 and start looking at level 3. I felt encouraged. I could see exactly where I was and what I needed to work on. The next day, Tuesday, another student asked a question that made everyone in the class lean in a little closer. "I want to practice speaking with people," she said, "but I'm afraid of making mistakes. I don't want to look stupid. What should I do?" Our teacher's answer stayed with me. She said, "Making mistakes is not a bad thing. It's a necessary part of learning. When I learn a new language like Spanish, I make mistakes all the time, and I don't care. My main goal is to communicate my ideas. Perfection will come later. Think about small children learning to talk. A 2-year-old makes many mistakes, but by the time they're 4, they speak almost perfectly. Why? Because they keep using the language. You can do the same with English." She explained that the only way to reach a higher level is to keep practicing, even if we make mistakes along the way. "Read a lot," she said. "Do shadowing every day. If you want to reduce mistakes, practice as much as you can. But when you speak, don't focus on grammar. Focus on the conversation. Famous people, politicians, CEOs, they all make mistakes when they speak. What matters is expressing your ideas." Her words changed how I felt about speaking. I realized that I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to be brave enough to try. And every time I tried, I would get better. By the end of that day, I felt a new energy inside me. I was learning so much from my teacher, my classmates, my job at the cafe, and my daily practice. I could see real progress in my English, and I knew this was only the beginning. And that is how my journey of learning English in London completely changed my life. From the shy girl who barely dared to speak on the train, I became someone who could confidently hold conversations with strangers, work in a cafe, and express myself in a new language. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt tired, when I made mistakes, when I doubted myself. But every single day, I kept going. I read, I listened, I practiced shadowing, I thought in English, and I used every opportunity to speak. Looking back now, I realize something important. Learning English or any language is not just about memorizing words or grammar rules. It's about using the language to connect with people, to express who you are, and to open new doors in life. Mistakes are not failures. They are proof that you are learning and growing. So, if you are on your own English learning journey right now, I want to tell you this. Don't give up. Be patient with yourself. Use the language every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Read books that inspire you. Listen to things you enjoy. Try shadowing to improve your pronunciation. And don't be afraid to speak. The more you use English, the more confident you will become. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If my story inspired you, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear about your English learning experiences and the challenges you are facing right now. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories and English learning tips. Share this video with a friend who might need a little motivation today. Remember, every single step you take brings you closer to fluency. So keep going, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.